Okay. Welcome to our webinar on navigating the internal process of starting or scaling up an energy drone program. So I'm Eric and I lead overall marketing for the Europe region of DJI out of the Frankfurt office, and I'll be moderating today's session. So some admin stuff before we begin. The recording of today's session will be sent to you right after this webinar. And also it's going to be a landing page where you could download the deck. We encourage you to ask as many questions as you please. So just type that in the question window right below. And later on, at the end of the presentation, we will go through it. Yeah, try to finish it. If not, you could contact Jamie if you have further questions. So to kick things off, I'm excited to introduce to you our speaker today. His name's Jamie Allen, who is the CEO of Allen Pathera. Hi, Jamie.
Hi there.
So next slide. Jamie began working with drones and other disruptive technology 6 years ago as BDM for industry pioneers like Cyberpark, where he managed the deployment of UAVs in various sectors, including oil and gas, renewables, civil infrastructure, land survey, utilities, and he worked with multiple blue chip key accounts. He was selected as a top 20 UK Dynamic CEO of 2020 by the CEO publication, and his company, Allen Pantera, was chosen as the best business growth consultancy firm in Corporate Vision's 2021 awards. He's a lawyer by trade and holds an MSc in management, enterprise and innovation, guest lectures at the University of Edinburgh Business School, and is a mentor at the University of Aberdeen and Offshore Renewables Energy Catapult. He holds a British Safety Council certificate in risk assessment and has extensive experience serving as a special police constable with Police Scotland. So that's it. Vast knowledge, vast experience. You're in good hands. Now on with the show. Over to you, Jamie.
Thanks, everyone. I think there might have been a slight hiccup to start with. I don't see the picture of myself and Eric on the hello slide, so apologies. That slide wasn't what you had in front of you. It's the end of the day, so understandably maybe a little bit tired I am. Apologies. So yeah, as Eric said, thank you so much for attending. And the purpose of the guide is to primarily help those within energy companies who are looking to start or scale up a drone program. However, if you're from a service company or a solution provider, a manufacturer, there are still plenty of tips and tricks to help you with any type of proposition in order to either approach energy companies or to look at starting or scaling a drone program within other sectors. But today we're focusing on the energy sector, and as Eric touched upon, my experience in that, and then what I've actually been through myself. So we won't go into reading this introductory slide. I'll also disappear from camera so you don't have to see my face in my daughter's bedroom that I'm in today at the moment. So I'll switch off my camera, and basically, like I say, the reason for the guide is to help each and every one of you. So please do ask questions or contact me offline if you'd prefer to do so. But if I can get to the first slide, which again, apologies for not having used GoToWebinar, but that seems to be working now, I think. One of the first and most important questions for energy companies is whether to do things in-house or to subcontract, and there's pros and cons to each of those decisions. So what I wanted to do first of all was just to briefly highlight some of the pros of going in-house or subcontracting. And what we see here is that clearly the energy industry is very much in preference of subcontracting much of the service provision, especially when it comes to technology and complex services. So here, for novel, infrequent or specialist tasks, subcontracting can be an advantage. It can also save on utilising internal resources. So if you have maybe suffered staff cuts, budget cuts, you don't want to be pulling those personnel into a drone program or to be conducting drone inspections. So you save on that by subcontracting. A great thing about subcontracting as well is that you're actually moving the risk onto a third party in a lot of ways. So again, you're protecting and limiting the exposure to problems down the line for your employer. And finally, there another pro of subcontracting is that you as an energy company, you don't have to worry about keeping up with the changing technology, the legislation, and all of the associated investment that goes into the time and the cost of keeping up with what is obviously quite a fast-moving kind of service provision these days. However, what I want to kind of play devil's advocate with is to look at why is it a pro to do things in-house. Now, if you do things in-house, you can develop a potentially closer and more beneficial relationship with your drone supplier than you may be getting benefit from having a third party do your inspections for you. And part of that is it allows you also to stay in greater control of the end-to-end operation. So if you are creating a bespoke in-house drone capability, you have much greater control, and it can be designed to fit the needs of your particular business and your operational needs. It also gives you the chance to develop IP, intellectual property, which is extremely valuable to many businesses and can be sometimes the key factor in whether to approve or disapprove a proposal for starting or scaling up a drone program. So keep that in mind if there's an opportunity to develop IP, but we'll touch upon that later on in the presentation. You can also, as I said, tailor the drone program to your company's needs. But a great thing I find that isn't shouted about enough is that you can continue to develop your staff with specialist skills and training by empowering them to conduct drone inspections and tasks within your energy organization. And one thing to say in a very kind of nascent industry is that there are a lot of drone service companies who go out of business. So in some areas it can be unreliable, as well as differing quality levels to subcontract. So that's why sometimes doing things in-house can be a benefit. But as I say, I always try and present a bit of both sides and get people thinking, but ultimately it's what works for you, and there's no harm in trying one route and finding it doesn't work and going down the other. You're not stuck with any one particular decision. So first of all, when you want to start or scale up a drone program, you're going to be looking at presenting your business case. You're going to be given the opportunity to pitch your idea, your needs, and this may be done in a presentation in front of people, but it also might be done in a document. So the first step in general is to set the scene. So if it's on paper or in person, it's very important to be telling a story throughout your presentation. And the reason for that is because you want people to kind of join you on this journey of your kind of pains, how you're going to solve them, the benefits, and what you're ultimately asking for. And being able to have that narrative is also quite powerful because you can either just talk to people and at people, or you can get them to buy into and get them on your side to what you want. So that sort of connection and that story is really powerful. So always try and have that in mind when you're setting your scene. It's also really important at the start, before you design your document or your presentation, that you know who your audience is going to be. Now, if you know it's going to be senior decision makers, or it's going to be even higher people than you've maybe met before or spoken to before, it's important to understand just who will be reading your document or listening to your pitch, because you can tailor particular aspects to really resonate with them. So if you know that a particular budget holder is facing constraints, you can directly appeal to them within your case Again, likewise, if you've got somebody who's responsible for health and safety, and he's going to be or she's going to be part of the decision-making process, you might want to highlight that. So again, knowing who is going to be the audience is obviously extremely powerful. Another part of setting the scene is to, tell people why we're here. So is there a real life example of an existing problem that you want to show that a drone program can solve? Or has there perhaps been an incident where somebody has fallen off scaffolding, or there's been a rope access incident? So whatever it is that you're, kind of setting the scene with, try and really paint a powerful picture about why you think going forward in your document or your presentation that drones are the logical next step for the business. If it's a face-to-face presentation, then again, that human interaction is really, really important and powerful. But what you want to do is you want to make the facts, the figures, all the information that you're presenting is to make it very simple, digestible, and very clear. And you want to talk and elaborate on what they see on the screen. So it's much easier to keep that attention if you do a kind of simple, clear, uncluttered presentation at the same time as you're talking. However, on the flip side, if it's going to be a paper document, a business justification case, something like that, then you want to make sure that there's enough detail that you're getting everything across that they're looking for, but also that it's not going to bore people, bog them down in too much information. Again, it's got to be clear and simple, but these are the considerations for setting the scene in the presentation or document. So as an example, this is an example slide that I would present. I might have a little bit more colour involved in terms of positive greens and negative reds to highlight differences. But basically here we've got the kind of bullet points on the left where it sets the scene about my position in the senior management team, providing them with a case for expanding the drone program. And I've highlighted why we're here. So we've conducted a recent flare stack inspection and a third party did so, and the benefits are seen in the table on the right, which I'll get to in a second. We've talked about, in the bullet points here, the benefits of the drone inspection compared to the traditional method. We've added the extra benefits as a kind of upsell, as it were, a kind of bonus about having 3D models and better utilizing the data. Not only data, we're capturing better data and better ways of using the data, and ultimately no production shutdown, which is a very powerful statement to end on in terms of we're not losing hundreds of thousands of pounds a day or tens of thousands of pounds a day, depending on which industry you're in. So the table here on the right, as I say, is clearly kind of comparing the drone and the traditional method. And as I say, I would have some colours in there, but ultimately you want to present the savings very clearly so that, as I say, you're talking about it and it's very visually clear. And these figures are taken from the Sky Guys, which is an American service company, if you want to check out that link when you download the guide. So these are all verifiable and real world figures. The next step in your presentation or document to scale up or start your drone program is to look at current capability gaps and why do they exist. So you want to demonstrate why the current position, the status quo, is not beneficial, it's not sustainable going forward, and that obviously what we're trying to do is show drones is the next best thing that we want to implement. So the first part of that is to reinforce the driver for you in being there today, delivering the presentation or submitting this documentation. And again, it's just very simply saying, is it a recent safety incident? Is it knowledge of competitors that are beginning to gain work that we're not winning? Is it staff cuts and budget cuts that we need to look at different ways of working? So just a simple reinforcement of why we're here. Then you want to have a simple overview of what you need to build the drone program. So are you starting from completely nothing at all, or do you simply need more equipment and more pilots trained? And we'll go into that in next steps with a more detailed breakdown. But for this second step, the second part of your presentation or case, you want to just kind of lead them into where we're going here. So why we're here then is just that real world example, if possible, if you've got one. So again, just really hitting home on an emotional level about, was there an accident? Is there a real, deep need that you that has led you here, or indeed is it just somebody has asked you to look for cutting edge technology solutions that can save the business money, which is always a good reason too. But whatever it is, it's again just making clear that drones to the kind of comparison of others is the next step. As I touched upon earlier, you want to show whether you're looking at an in-house or a subcontracting model, and what are the pros and cons of doing this, again, so that you're able to basically mitigate any questions that may come up later on. And then you want to conclude with an overall statement. So, just capturing everything in one sentence where, it's conveying everything really that we've said in all the bullets there into that final sentence. So as I said, you can start with a drone program in-house, start with a subcontractor, whatever it is, but when you develop your strategy, what I would encourage is that you remember to review it over time. So even though you're enjoying the benefits, things are going well, you want to make sure that you're having at least an annual review as the technology, as legislation, as suppliers come and go, just to make sure that you're not becoming complacent with what your particular in-house or subcontracting model is. And this is an example, again, for a slide deck where we've got the capability gaps that are driving the need to use drones. So it's reinforcing that message. And here we've got less staff. We're saying internally we have nothing at all, so we need pilots and drones as a minimum. We don't have the budget to adapt to quickly changing hardware, so we need to subcontract. We don't have internal resource, and therefore we need to look at a competitive tender and build a subcontracting drone provision for our energy business. The third step is what I've called the holistic view. So you want to consider how the drone program is going to fit within your energy organization. So it's all of the high level considerations, hardware, software, vehicles, insurance, processes, how it links in with different business units, who has budget responsibility, who has the ultimate holder of the risk, the management oversight. But in this third step, you want to just prevent the high level view of that, because the detail will come later on when you specify your sort of shopping list towards the end. But what you want to do is also highlight who is the the best person for the job. Is it yourself as the proposer, who's presenting, who's sending the document? It could be yourself because you've got experience flying in your spare time, or it could be someone else that that has shown an interest and you're merely the messenger who's been tasked with presenting this business case. But it's a good idea to just, again, mitigate the questions of, well, who's going to be responsible, who's going to do this, and make sure you cover these up front. And that's why I've recommended having an organizational chart there to, again, show where it fits in. And also, if you're thinking quite cleverly about, getting buy-in from different parts of your organization, then what you want to do is take away as much pain as possible from other people. So you don't want them necessarily to be completely responsible for something that it's a surprise to them, that's going to cause them more work. If you can, again, mitigate these potential barriers, that's going to increase the likelihood that your proposals will be accepted by the review board, the decision makers. And finally, another really key point that is sometimes forgotten with proposals is your succession and contingency planning. So if the person who's responsible, if it's yourself, someone else, if you were to fall ill, if you were to leave the job, If the subcontractor perhaps goes out of business, what is the contingency plan to make sure that these critical operations, the critical inspections that are planned, sometimes a year in advance when it comes to the offshore oil and gas industry, certainly with their shutdowns. But what is the mitigation again to make sure that if there's disruption, the drone program is going to go smoothly? So again, it's trying to just think of potential questions that you might be asked by people who may see barriers and may see issues with your proposal. And the example here for the slide deck that I've got is again the organisation chart where you've got the drone team fitting into the engineering centre as the reporting model, and it speaks about there who is going to be the sort of accountable manager and then the owner. But importantly, again, we're looking at suggestions of who is going to be responsible for the budget, because we want, again, a clear route to kind of budgetary oversight if they're going to invest with capital to start a program, or if it's going to be scaling up. So does it come from an R&D function? Does it come from kind of OPEX? So just make sure you sort of address these issues in your how the drone program is going to be integrated. So the fourth step in your document or the presentation in your slide deck is going to be about building the wider evidence. So we've already spoken about the very clear, the very simple, setting the scene and the basic steps. Now we want to really get into the detail of the wider evidence, and that ultimately comes down to the return on investment from the drone program that you're asking your company to invest in. So, what I wanted to do here was provide some examples within the guide that you can leverage. So you might be in an energy company which has not really fully made the most of drones and technology, but looking here, the bigger players, BP 2006 to present, ConocoPhillips 2013, they were quite early adopters of the technology and consequently reaping the benefits earlier. But basically, look at benchmarking against your peers to see what they're doing and learn from that. That's sometimes the best way. Is don't be afraid to have those conversations and have more of an open, transparent discussion with your traditional competitors about what they're doing. And a lot of it is online, it's open source, and some people are just happy to kind of share the technological advance for the benefit of the wider industry. So you might find that it's not completely a closed door. But again, moving on from the pioneers there, again, building the evidence picture. What internal success has been achieved already? Have you done a trial? Are there metrics that you can already bring into your business case to demonstrate what the ROI has been so far and how that can actually be scaled up and extrapolated by further adoption throughout the organization? If you haven't actually had much luck with drones, you may have tried inspections, tried different service provision, and I've seen this before where things haven't gone well, but what I've been through and what I've seen is not to give up. And what I mean by that is you may have taken over the drone program from someone else. You may have used a supplier which may not be the best for that particular task. So try and seek the kind of specialist external advice, whether it's a service provider, whether it's a consultancy. But just if you've tried something and it hasn't worked, it's not gone well, don't give up. It will go well for you with the right people supporting you. So that's what I would say there. Again, looking around, so another way of building the evidence to perhaps a manager or an employer who doesn't really like drones, they're maybe a bit more old school, is to look and say, well, do you know what, our industry regulators, our independent verification bodies, our insurers, try and build the evidence of these peers and organizations that are prominent in your industry, and how they're actually now proposing and recommending drone use for inspections and surveys. So in the UK, the trade body Oil and Gas UK has their own guidelines, as well as Lloyd's as a class society for guidance notes using UAS for inspections. And again, there's many guidelines, how-to guides basically, that are published by these organizations. So again, bring them in as credible sources to show your decision makers that, look, this is the way things are going. These organizations are already detailing that it's a valid, it's a legitimate, and it's a beneficial method of inspection. We can quite clearly give it a go, and it won't be new, it wouldn't be totally risky. So that's what to look around for. And then aside from those ROI metrics above, think creatively if you can as well. So when you're doing this exercise of your document or your pitch deck, don't rush it. Make sure you kind of revisit it, do some work on it, go away for some hours or some days, come back to it. But why I'm saying think creatively is because some other value adds are incredibly important to the decision-making process. So, is there differentiation from your competitors that can be highlighted by using drones and having a drone program? Can it be something which you can evidence in tenders or bids for work? Because quite frequently, a lot of these organizations are asking for an innovation roadmap. So they want to see, is your organization innovative, i.e., what plans do you have down the line for introducing certain technologies, certain processes, and that can score you more highly in a bid for work or a tender. So again, think of how a drone program can do so. You might also want to think about the equipment and the resource and how it can be used elsewhere in the business. So outside of the operational inspection environment, can the marketing department use drones to get some content for their campaigns? Where else in the organization could the technology be used? Can it be used perhaps for school outreach programs, which might again get you some extra points from your decision makers? So what to kind of wrap all of this up in is providing that information, but with some videos, pictures, data sets that will really again hammer home and illustrate what the evidence is, which again all points to using drones, which is what we want to show. And an example here is the capability gaps driving the need to use drones. So I've used the word driving quite a lot, and again, simple format of what's the use case, what's the benefit, the example of the benefit, and again, this can be from other sources if you've not done the particular task, or it can be from your own task as well. And then the other benefits to the company on the right there. But what is good to do on your slide or on the particular section of the document is to have your kind of headline, which is at the bottom, which is again just very clearly spelling out what the benefit is there. So again, all of these facts and figures are verified with sources that you can hyperlink to when you download the document. In your fifth step, you want to then touch in more detail upon what you need. So this is where I was talking about the shopping list before. So you know that you need people, hardware, software, everything else, but you want to just break that down an extra level and again just provide them with that information so that it shows them you have a very clear grip and a handle on what you're proposing for the drone program. So you propose it, you justify it, and as I've said as well, a great thing to highlight is where IP can be generated, because from a business point of view, from drone operators, engineers, sometimes it can be forgotten about. So always just have these added value, extra benefits, the bonuses in mind. But ultimately, you may be asked, or you may want to have a proof of concept, to sort of be okay, we hear what you say, let's do a trial first. Now, that sort of evidence is quite easy to gather by using a third party. It's something that I've done with an organisation in the UK, where they wanted to check out a BV loss capability in-house. So we provided a consultancy paper which detailed the various options for the airframes, the software, the comms equipment, what sort of legislative adherence we'd be conforming to. So we kind of produced this document. It was reviewed. Great, okay, let's go and plan it. So then we looked at planning the trial. They purchased the drone, planned it all. It went down fantastically, and now we're helping them transition into the kind of, they're going to take that capability in house. So we've kind of, you're providing that real life evidence again, but in a trial setting. So you can invite people down. You can tailor the trial to exactly what you need to then produce the evidence they're asking for. But ultimately, it will be again a green light. There's no way that you can not have a green light from doing a drone inspection of a flare stack if you were usually doing it through other means. It's irrefutable, but something to consider as well up your sleeve. And then this example slide of the items and costs. So this is for a tower inspection or a electricity pylon inspection drone program. So here we've detailed, as I said, an example of what is the hardware requirements, software, insurance, pilot training, and anything else. So we've detailed the cost of each of those, and then we've shown what it would be in year one if we maybe leased certain aspects, or if we paid for everything ourselves. So again, that's things to think about, is can you maybe subcontract the reporting and the data analysis for your inspections, or do you want to go through the process of setting it up all in-house? So again, when you're looking at an example to pitch of your shopping list, again, just make sure that you're kind of year one benefits are quite clear, but also shows options, again, to mitigate those questions that you might be asked once you finish talking, or once they've sent some feedback on your business document. So what drone to use when? We're all aware of DJI obviously being on the call and working together. So for the energy industry, there's basically 3 DJI options which are standout for the particular task. The Matrice 300 and that particular configuration is clearly going to be the most robust for the most complex, challenging environments, and more of the high level, as in granular inspection data and detail that you need. The Mavic 2 there for kind of a medium risk environment, but also medium complexity. It's still used offshore by some companies that I know, but again, a very versatile and a cheaper option. And then you've got your Phantom 4 there, which again is for your sort of basic low risk, low complexity tasks as well, where again you might want to start out testing things, you might want to start out just proving the concept before moving on to the more expensive equipment. But as you know, there are service providers who can rent the drones through DJI Enterprise Partners. You don't necessarily have to buy the equipment, especially if you're not confident and you've not got the right experience to go down that line straight away. Okay, so the 6th step, and we're nearly there, guys, so thank you for continuing to be patient and listen. We're nearly at the end. So when will the ROI be seen? So this is again a very, very key consideration to your document or to your presentation. At this point, because of everything that you've included in your previous steps, you should have people who are buying into your ask. They want to help you. They want to achieve these benefits. They want to transform their business. So then it comes down to, well, ultimately it's a business. When are we going to get our money back? When is the ROI going to be seen? So through the data that I've worked with, which again is all referenceable through the hyperlinks, we can see that in most cases for energy and inspection industries, there's an 85% reduction in inspection times, and cost savings are at least 30%, but can range 7 to 8% and above. And then clearly with your production shutdown that you can avoid by using drones, certainly in oil and gas and wind, you are, it depends on the oil price, obviously, but again, the figures are astounding. You can be spending, a few thousand on a drone inspection, and you're saving hundreds of thousands, potentially millions, by not having to shut down production. So that speaks for itself when it comes to the benefits, and that's something you want to really, again, hammer home and reinforce. So the example slide that we have here for the step 6 is the pylon, the tower inspection drone program, the ROI. So what we've done is we've put, again, the comparison of a helicopter cost, the drone cost, and a ground-based sort of cost in terms of how many towers they can do a day. And then on the right here, we've just provided more detail on when the ROI would actually be realised. So again, you can digest the figures when you read this in a bit of a slower time, but ultimately you want to show, okay, if we're spending $260,000 in the first year, the savings are 137 to 178k, and then you've got 82 to 123k of cost remaining. But based on the savings each year, when are we going to make our money back? And therefore the ROI in this particular example is 18 to 24 months. So again, it's a much quicker ROI for investing in equipment, and process than you would see in other types of technology. So again, you want to make sure that this is a very clear, unarguable fact that the drone program might be expensive to some people, but ultimately the benefits from a cost perspective are made back very quickly. And also, I would always hammer home from a safety perspective that the cost of a life is unquantifiable. So in that respect, use drones when you can. And then what I'll say as well is, again, just to be objective, not suggesting drones are the tool for everything. I always say this with my presentations, about drones, is that make sure it's the right tool for the job. But clearly, this example, we're wanting drones to be to be the tool of choice. And finally, you want to review the key points. So in your pitch, in your document, you want to reinforce the key themes. So what is the problem? What's the solution? What does it cost, and what's the value it will deliver? So they're kind of 4 very simple ways of wrapping up everything that you've presented thus far in your presentation or your document. And again, what I always find is very effective speaking to decision makers is that the fear of missing out statement is very important. So just hammering home again at the end that your competitors are moving ahead of you, you could be losing work, your customers are requesting or specifying drone inspections over other methods. You want to make people have a bit of an urgency to move towards what you're asking for, and obviously comparing that to the competition is always very powerful for senior decision makers. And again, if you're in person, it's always great to have a drone with you, a controller. If you've got a TV screen that you can have maybe some software on with some inspection data, it's always great to have. But to get people hands-on and to get them excited is again, it just adds to the buy-in and the personal engagement that you want to have. But if it's a document, obviously you can invite them to come and see you personally, or you can organise perhaps a a tabletop event, a lunch and learn, or something, depending on where the office is that you should go to. So in terms of an example slide for a summary, we've got here that we need to start a drone program because of a recent amount of health and safety incidents. You've summarised here the investment of we need 4 pilots, 2 drones, etc. You've then put what the year 1 cost is, but when that ROI will be realised, when will you get the money back? You're reinforcing the benefits again in simple terms there: reduction in inspection time, cost, priceless safety, as I mentioned, and then potential IP and competitive advantage, which is again super important for a business. And then you've got here the fear of missing out. So if we don't initiate a drone program, in this case, they're starting from scratch, then we're going to miss out on the benefits, and we'll lose out to our competitors and other stakeholders who are asking for it. And then you put your contact details for any further questions at the bottom there. So yeah, any further information, as I said, a lot of experience which you can digest there. But I've given some useful sort of tools here as well. So a great way of collaborating online, particularly nowadays that we're not all in the same office, or if you're in different sites across the globe, it's something like Mural. It's an online whiteboard. It's a way of working live on propositions, on ideas together. So that's something which can be really good in terms of preparing for your document or preparing for your presentation. And then actually a tool that I found there which can help you to compare to do things in-house or outsource is your team in India, the blog there, in-house versus outsourcing. So that's the kind of the links, and we'll end on a case study of Duke Energy, who are one of the largest companies in the US in terms of energy. 7 million customers, nearly 30,000 employees, and they're involved in wind, solar, and natural gas generation. So you can see the journey here. 2014, they've kind of explored drones. 2015, they made the decision to found a team with 2 employees for wind and solar. And then a year later, they've got 10 employees. But what they actually did was they proactively went out and assessed, hurricane damage, and that was involving power lines, but also for vegetation encroachment onto power lines. So you can see that they really made a lot of use of it. But then 2017, they expanded more of the sort of the technical element with the types of tasks that they're doing. Again, they're looking at the hurricane damage, the sort of proactive. Okay, there's been a spontaneous weather event. Let's go and make most use of the drones and the equipment we have. And then 2018, they've increased, tripled in size in the last 2 years with 30 employees. And then out of the whole of the Duke Energy company in 2019, they won an employee honor for the Puerto Rico power line inspection following the hurricanes. 2020, we see that they then did 2,000 assignments using drones, 2,000 missions, and then 2021, we're going to double that amount of missions and have over 40 in the drone team. So you can see that they've taken 2 or 3 years of finding their feet, but then very quickly ramped up the type of use case and the size of the drone team to great effect. So a powerful example of just how an energy company can realize the benefits of starting from scratch with their drone program. That's everything in terms of the guide, the walkthrough of the guide. As Eric says, you can download it and use it for reference. It's not meant to be a comprehensive guide with everything in it, because we would be talking all day. But if there are any detailed questions, feel free to contact me. But otherwise, we'll open the floor now. I think Eric has hopefully got some questions that I can answer.
Thank you, Jamie, for that presentation. So we have questions so far from Tim. Does Alan Pantera or your firm provide just consultancy, or do you actually provide drone services as well?
No, we don't provide drone services. We remain independent in the market in terms of service providers and the capability of drones for end users. So we don't conduct any services. We find that our experience is best served in supporting a range of organisations with various needs. As I say on our website, you can see the list of services that we support drone companies with. But we can provide an overview of what we feel are the best service companies if you need a particular service. Otherwise, it's consultancy services that we provide.
So here's a question. From Sergey, when comparing helicopter versus drone, which type of drones was taken specifically? Copter-like, DJI, or fixed wings?
Sorry, just ask that again, Eric. The last part I didn't quite catch.
So in your presentation, when you talked about helicopter versus drone, are you pertaining to drones, multicopters like DJI, or you meant fixed wings?
No, so the comparison for a power line inspection would be with a multi-rotor. That's because that's what we've seen, used for the close visual inspections. Certainly in the UK, there's less tendency for fixed wing, and that's because of the BV loss limitations. There's extended line of sight, that has helped increase the use of a fixed wing perhaps for power line inspection, but certainly the multi-rotor for the kind of legislative point of view is the most effective at the moment, and clearly there are the DJI level, but again some companies are looking at bigger drones, but again that comes with more complexity for cost and for you need basically a military pilot. So that's what I mentioned about not only should you find the drone being the right tool compared to a rope access or a fixed wing or whatever it is, but also make sure that the type of drone is the right one for that particular task too. But again, I can provide some more information in an email about comparisons of fixed wings and multi-rotors to helicopters for different types of power line or rail inspections as well, which I've experienced.
Here's another question from Thomas. So Thomas is asking, have you considered integrating autonomous drone software for transmission line inspections? I guess if you've had projects that you've worked on in the past, how does software come into play?
Yeah, so I mean, there's obviously a great range of software companies out there, some of which have been referenced for their data in the guide, which you can find on the hyperlinks, and there is a mix of the AI enabled machine learning autonomous software. That depends really on the appetite of the end user of the data. So some companies are quite happy to see that the machine learning is very reliable and there's little error, and that it is maybe checked finally by a human. Some companies are still not quite there yet in terms of completely relying on AI to do all of the inspections. So sometimes manually processing the data, but presenting it in the cloud in a very visually intuitive format is how some companies like to operate. So again, if you're looking for particular suggestions or software providers, I can do so offline again with the kind of the benefits and differences between the kind of the best in the market out there.
Next question from Tim. Do you work with service providers such as Aerodyne, Cyberhawk, Feds, and the others? He's saying that the market for drone services seems to have struggled during the pandemic and the outlook post-pandemic, pending more open regulations in many countries seem to be geared for strong growth. Is that consistent with what you're seeing?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been lucky enough to work as an employee when I started my career in drones for Cyberhawk, and then once I started my consultancy, working with other service providers. So I've worked with Precision Hawk on some of their tenders and operations, as well as TerraDrone and then some others. But yeah, I wouldn't say that the pandemic has slowed things down if you're already integrated into the sort of the ecosystem with these end users, then you shouldn't really have seen a kind of downturn. If anything, you should have seen an upswing, an increase in the use of drones and your services. So in that respect, if you're a drone service provider, it's something that we support on is how to best position and prepare your business, but also how best to reach the market, how to engage with the companies, and how to again stay completely relevant and sticky to them, which is more than just we can provide, imagery and inspection data. Those days are kind of gone now for bigger energy companies. You want to really be providing, a software portal solution. You want to be very robust with having your ISO certificates, your sort of roadmap for the future in terms of your own company's stability and credibility, your other accreditations from industry. So there's lots and lots of things which once you do work for an energy company, and there are ways again of doing trials and showing your capability, but once you're actually producing a good service, it can be quite difficult to then lose that work, because you do build up a good reputation, and the market for service providers is still very very small compared to the actual market of inspection requirements. So yeah, I would say that if you are a service provider, feel free to contact myself and look at how is your business model designed, what is your strategy, and again, from having won big contracts with the likes of Equinor and GE, and having project managed world first offshore inspection operations, there's a great level of insight that I can support you with. So happy to help with that one offline if you've got a particular kind of burning issue.
Yeah, I get some perspective as well from DJI that during the pandemic, we've also experienced a lot of growth. We've seen a lot of companies adopting the drones because, I don't know, some companies would require more contactless work, or a lot are just rethinking how their business models are like during the pandemic, and shifting focuses, and they have more time as well to sharpen their drone programs or be more innovative. So that's something we've seen so far and hope the growth continues.
Yeah,
Um,
and just to add to that as well, the amount of government initiatives and financial support certainly in the UK and Europe has increased, and again, as Eric's highlighted, that space, the breathing space, the realization that remote working is preferred, the cost savings that need to be achieved because money is being spent on the COVID response, not at only government level but also at company level. But I've seen there's been a lot more of a drive to help innovators and help entrepreneurs kind of go forward with their business, as well as the end users, who again, as Eric's highlighted, have driven that need as well. So definitely there should be a lot of opportunity out there when you look in the right place.
Here's a very good question from Sergey. He's asking, what are the main typical objections from energy companies, CXOs, or what are when they're against introducing drone programs?
Sorry, there was a beep I think from your email just as you said a word. If you could just repeat the question, Eric. Sorry.
His question is, what are the main reasons why senior management is declining the use of drones normally when it's proposed?
Yeah, it's a whole bag of reasons, and again, it's all dependent on that particular energy company. A lot of it is to do with senior management are older. They've been through their industry with limited technology. They prefer a human than a robot or a piece of equipment that is doing the job. And sometimes it comes down to just they fear drones are going to replace humans, and people will lose jobs, which was a fear at the start of the industry, but I don't think has been um, certainly not any impact the way that some of the scaremongers were communicating. So that sort of, I guess, like I said in the presentation, the old school mentality can be quite a big blocker, and a lot of that is just they instantly don't like drones or anything new because they don't like change. Um, but that's where hopefully using this guide, you can start to build these, like I say, these kind of pieces of evidence, the pieces of the puzzle that all together show that drones for your particular need is the only way that the organization needs to go. And that's why throughout the kind of the guides talk through there, I was talking about trying to anticipate any questions. So that's where it's beneficial and helpful that when you're working on your pitch deck or your document, your Word documents, um, don't spend hours sat at the computer doing it all and then it's ready to go. Take a couple of hours, go away, and come back with some just fresh eyes. Read it the next day, read it a few days, a week later, because you'll just start to just have a clearer head of, okay, if I was reading this as a decision maker, what questions would I ask? So try and flip your mindset as well from being the proponent and being the advocate of drones to just, okay, if I was going to block this proposal, what would I be asking, or what would I want to ask to bring up a negative response, or to bring up a sort of a con of the proposal. So that's something that I'd recommend as well. But to be honest, when you have all these pieces of the evidence and the ROI and the benefits, it should be very difficult to say no. And you're not going to get yes all the time. As I say, some people are just completely against it. But what you can do is think of other ways to have a trial, maybe through a different business unit, a different department, maybe just send on some internal communications. Oh, I've seen this video, I've seen this competitor use drones, and just chip away at the if it's one person, just chip away, and like I say, you might never succeed, and if so, I'd probably leave the company and try somewhere else. But if you do, then it's a great victory. But it's hard for certainly organisations which have a board, to see the evidence and not then force that change in agenda onto the kind of management team. Um, but yeah, as I say, lots of reasons, but people is the main one, and that's where you've got to have that personal and almost psychological approach to winning people over to help.
Right. Thank you, Jamie. We still have a lot of questions, but unfortunately, we're running out of time. Maybe, Jamie, you could say your last words or follow through later on some of the questions and also share
Yeah,
your info.
Yeah, absolutely happy for any questions to contact me. I think my contact details are in the guide. If they're not, then they'll be on my website. But no, I think, as I say, you want to really think, what am I trying to achieve here? Is it a step change? Is it a big transformation for the organization? And therefore, really, take that time and make sure your benefits are super clear, the risks are very clear as well, so that the alternative is just not an option. But if it's just a case of scaling up what you're already doing, again, make sure that what you're presenting is clearly a success as well. And as I said, if it's not a success, what you've tried so far, look to others in industry, look to different organisations, maybe government organisations or consultancies who are able to provide that specialist support or a kind of an outside nudge that you might need internally. But as I say, it's hopefully a guide that will get you thinking, can give you a bit of structure. But ultimately, it's been a pleasure to speak to you all, and happy to answer any questions later on if anyone gets in touch. But again, thank you to Eric and DGI for allowing me to produce this guide with them. And everybody stay safe and take care.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.